Hi guys, today's lesson is on how to simplify expressions using the distributive property. So we're going to start off by talking about what it means to distribute or to use the distributive property. Okay, so normally if I have some number quantity with addition in it, such as this, because of order of operations, I am supposed to add first, do what's in the parentheses first. So I would add first. But I want to show you what this is equivalent to. If I take 5 plus 3, so in other words, if I have 5 objects, and then I add 3 more. If I do that first, and then I multiply it by 2, so I double it, I am doubling 8. And my answer is 16. I have 16 objects here. Looking at this image, this is the same thing as doubling 5 and doubling 3 and then combining them together. And that's what the distributive property says. It says that we can add two numbers first and then multiply them, but that is essentially the same thing as multiplying each of those numbers together and then adding them. So they'll give you the same answer. The one on the left gives you 16 because you're doing 2 times 8. The one on the right gives you 10 because you're doubling 5 like we did here, plus 6 because you're doubling 3, which also gives you 16. These two expressions are equivalent. They mean the same thing, and that's what the distributive property says that you can do. This is going to be useful when you have x inside of the parentheses. It's not so much necessary when you're just solving with order of operations, but when one of those numbers in the parentheses becomes a variable, this property will be important to simplify your expression. So instead of having to add first, we're going to be able to rewrite it as being 2 times 5 plus 2 times 3. So let me show you what that looks like in an algebraic expression with a variable. So if I have 3 times x plus 4, since I can't add x plus 4 first because I don't know what x is. Instead, to simplify this expression, we're going to distribute, and we're going to distribute the 3 to the x and the 4. Distribute, that word means to sort of to pass out. So we're essentially giving the 3 that's being multiplied to both of these. So what I'm going to do is 3 times x, and we write that as 3x. And then I'm going to do 3 times 4, and we'll add those together. 3 times 4 is 12. This expression is simplified. So what we're doing is we're simplifying it. So when we take something with multiplication and parentheses, so we have 3 times a quantity that's in parentheses, we can distribute. So we can multiply the 3 times each term inside the parentheses. And that's how you simplify an expression that has this distributing going on. So let's look at another example. Let's say I have 5 times 2x minus 6. So what we're distributing is we're going to distribute the 5. It's the same, doing this is the same as multiplying the 5 by the 2x and then multiplying the 5 by the 6. So when I multiply the 5 by the 2x, I get 10x. I keep my subtraction sign. So it's still going to be minus. It's going to be whatever symbol within the parentheses. And now I'm going to do 5 times 30. So that's simplest form. I've simplified my expression, and the answer would be 10x minus 30. Let's do this with a longer expression. So when we simplify expressions, the very first thing we want to look at doing is distributing if possible. So whenever you simplify an expression, there's really 2 things that you can do. The first is that if you can, you want to distribute if you have anything that looks like it can use the distributive property, like this. The second thing you'll want to do is combine like terms if possible, but you always want to distribute first. So you might want to pause it and jot this down. So first thing we do is distribute. The order does matter. You have to distribute first. Then combine like terms. So we're going to do that with this one. We're going to distribute first. So I'm not doing anything with this 4x, but I'll rewrite it so I don't forget that it's part of my expression. Now I'm going to distribute the 2 to the 3x and the 6. And what I'll get is 6x. And then 2 times 6 is 12, so plus 12. Again, whatever symbol this is, if it's addition, you're going to drop that down and use an addition sign. So I've done the distributing. Now I'm going to combine like terms. My like terms are 4x and 6x. So when I combine 4x's plus 6x's, I have 10x's all together. And that is the simplest form of that expression. So your answer is 10x plus 12. Okay, another example might be this. We'll make that plus 6. Okay, so I'm still going to have to distribute first. When you distribute, if you have a subtraction sign in front of it, it would be wise to change all subtraction signs to add the opposite, or do keep, change, change, so it becomes addition. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do keep, change, change. Keep the 5 the same, change the subtraction to addition, and change the 3 to a negative. Because when you have a minus 3 in front of parentheses that you're distributing, if it's subtracting 3, you're essentially distributing a negative 3 to everything inside the parentheses. So you have to remember that, and it's a good idea to do keep, change, change, so you change all of your subtraction to addition. Now, we cannot add 5 and negative 3. Remember, you cannot add like terms until after you've done the distributing. So we're not doing anything with this 5 yet. We're just distributing a negative 3. So we're going to have negative 3 times x is negative 3x. And then drop the plus sign. Negative 3 times positive 6 is negative 18. Now, if you prefer to write it with a minus sign, that is the same thing as this, and you can write that either way. Instead of plus negative 3x and plus negative 18, it means the same as minus 3x and minus 18, so whichever you prefer. Now the next thing is to combine like terms, and I do have like terms. I have a 5 and I have a negative 8. Remember that 18. Remember that 18 is negative, so whether or not you have it as a minus 18 or plus negative 18, that is a negative 18 essentially that you're combining with 5. So positive 5 minus 18, or positive 5 plus negative 18, either way, that gives you a negative 13. Okay, negative 13, and then we still have this minus 3x that doesn't have any like term, so it just becomes minus 3x. And typically in these expressions, we want to put our terms that have a variable first. So I actually want to reorder this, and I can't reorder with subtraction, so I'm going to do keep, change, change again to keep this a little bit simpler. That way it's addition. So I basically have a negative 13 plus a negative 3x. So now with that it's addition, I can switch the order because of the commutative property of addition. So I'm going to write it with the negative 3x first, and then plus negative 13. This means the same as negative 3x minus 13. So you could write it either way and that would be fine. So it's just important to put the variable first and then the constant term at the end if possible. So that's how you use the distributive property to simplify expressions. Just remember, if there's a minus sign in front of that number, you're essentially distributing a negative number to everything on the inside. Also, it's important to remember that you have to distribute before you combine like terms. So always do your distributive property first.